The human's name was Evan Hale, and the galaxy would remember it long after his body turned to dust. Evan was stationed on outpost K-47, a lonely metal structure floating in deep space where stars looked cold and distant. It wasn't a place for heroes. It was a place for repairs, silence, and waiting. Evan fixed doors, power lines, life support systems, and every night, he stared out the viewport thinking of Earth. He missed simple things. Morning sunlight. Rain hitting rooftops. And the sound of children laughing in parks. Humans, Evan believed, were creatures of memory. Even when they traveled across galaxies, their hearts stayed behind. The night everything changed, Evan was halfway through a routine systems check when the alarm screamed. Intruder alert. Multiple hostiles on board. His blood ran cold. The attackers were Carthal, a species feared across the galaxy. They believed weakness deserved extinction. When they invaded, they left nothing alive, not soldiers, not civilians, not children. Evacuation orders echoed through the station. Escape pods were limited. Everyone knew the rule, save yourself. Evan started running. Then he heard it. A sound that didn't belong in war. A soft, trembling cry. He stopped. The cry came from a dark service corridor near the cargo bay. Every instinct screamed at him to keep moving. Helping meant slowing down. Slowing down meant death. But Evan thought of Earth. He thought of how humans crossed burning buildings for strangers. How they shielded children with their own bodies. How they called it instinct, not bravery. He turned back. Behind a broken crate, he found her. An alien child, small, shaking, her skin glowing faintly like moonlight through water. Her eyes locked onto Evan, filled with raw terror. She didn't understand his words, his uniform, or his species. She only understood fear. Evan slowly knelt, heart pounding. "It's okay," he whispered, even though she couldn't understand. "You're not alone." Heavy footsteps echoed nearby. The Carthal were close. Evan picked her up. She clung to him instantly, as if her instincts recognized something safe. He ran. Blaster fire tore through the corridor walls. Sparks rained down. The station shook violently. Evan's lungs burned as he reached the escape pod bay. One pod remained. Only one seat. The countdown timer flashed red. Evan looked at the pod. Then at the child in his arms. There was no debate. No hesitation. He strapped the child into the seat, adjusted the restraints with shaking hands, and activated the launch sequence. The child reached out toward him, making a small confused sound. Evan forced a smile. "You're going to live," he said softly. "That matters." The pod launched. The bay doors sealed. Behind him, the Carthal warriors entered, weapons raised. Evan stood straight. Unarmed. Unafraid. At peace. Moments later, outpost K-47 exploded into silence. The galaxy expected the story to end there. It didn't. The escape pod was recovered by a neutral fleet days later. When they found the alien child alive, and learned how she survived, the news spread faster than any war report ever had. A human chose death. For a child not his own. For another species. Galactic leaders were stunned. Entire civilizations questioned everything they believed about humans. When asked why, humans gave a simple answer. She was a child. The child grew, years passed. She became a symbol, then a voice. Standing before the Galactic Council as an adult, she spoke calmly, her words echoing across thousands of worlds. "A human saved me when he had every reason not to," she said. "He showed me that strength is not domination, but protection." The council was silent. From that day forward, human ships were welcomed, not feared. Because the galaxy learned a truth it would never forget. Humans may be fragile. Humans may be flawed. But when it comes to protecting the innocent, they will choose death, so others can live. The explosion of Outpost K-47 faded into the dark, endless quiet of space. For the galaxy, it was just another destroyed station. For the Carthal, it was a completed mission. For Evan Hale, it was the end. But for the child inside the escape pod, it was only the beginning. The pod drifted for days. Inside, the alien child, later known as Sarah, curled into herself, weak and frightened. The pod systems were old, designed for humans, not her species. The lights were dim. The air felt wrong. Every few hours, she touched the empty seat beside her. The seat where the human should have been. She didn't know his name. She didn't know his species. But she remembered his eyes. Not fear. Not hatred. Just care. When the Neutral Alliance patrol ship Aegis Dawn detected the pod, the crew expected another corpse. That's what space usually gave them. Instead, they found a living child. The medical team froze when they scanned her. A survivor, one officer whispered. From K-47. That's impossible. When they accessed the pod's final logs, silence filled the med bay. Video footage showed a human kneeling, smiling softly, strapping the child into the seat. His voice was calm. Gentle. You're going to live. That matters. No screams. No begging, just choice. Word spread fast. Within hours, the footage reached systems that had never agreed on anything, not laws, not trade, not war. And now, they were all asking the same question. Why would a human die for an alien child? The Carthal were furious. Their commanders demanded an explanation. Humans were supposed to be selfish. Weak. Predictable. This act made no sense, and that terrified them. If humans are willing to die for our children, one Carthal strategist growled, what will they do for their own? Meanwhile, Sarah slowly recovered. She didn't speak for days. She refused food at first. Every time a human doctor entered the room, her breathing slowed instead of speeding up. She trusted them. That disturbed the aliens watching closely. When asked why she stayed calm around humans, Sarah finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. He stood between me and death, she said. So I know what humans are. The words were recorded. Broadcast. Remembered. On Earth, Evan Hale's name reached his family. His mother listened to the report in silence. No tears. No screams. Just a hand over her mouth. He always was like that, she said quietly. He never walked past someone who needed help. Earth didn't demand statues. They didn't ask for glory. They said something simpler. He did what any human should. That sentence echoed across the stars. Recruitment offices across the galaxy quietly changed their policies. Refugee worlds began requesting human protection units. Even enemies hesitated before firing on ships marked with the human insignia. Because now the galaxy knew something dangerous. Humans didn't measure life by species. They measured it by innocence. And somewhere, aboard the Aegis Dawn, a small alien child slept peacefully for the first time, her hand resting on an empty seat. She didn't know it yet. But one day, she would speak for the human who gave her everything. The galaxy did not move on. It couldn't. The footage of Evan Hale choosing death to save an alien child spread across star systems like wildfire. Not because it was violent, but because it was incomprehensible. No treaty. No command. No reward. Just choice. Across the galaxy, debates erupted. Military councils argued. Philosophers rewrote old theories. Species that believed survival justified everything suddenly faced a question they had never answered. What if strength wasn't about living longer, but protecting others? The child, now known as Sarah, grew under the care of the Neutral Alliance. She learned languages, cultures, histories. But one lesson stayed with her more than any other. Humans protected the weak. Not because they had to. Because they believed it was right. When Sarah finally stood before the Galactic Council, every world listened. She didn't shout. She didn't accuse. She simply played the recording. Evan's calm voice filled the chamber. You're going to live. That matters. When the recording ended, Sarah spoke softly. This human had every reason to save himself, she said. Instead, he taught me what courage truly is. The council was silent. Then, something unprecedented happened. Worlds voted together. Children, of every species, were declared universally protected. War zones were restricted. Refugee convoys were placed under human escort. Even former enemies accepted it. Because they had learned something terrifying and beautiful. Humans would die for what they believed was right. On Earth, Evan Hale was remembered not as a soldier, but as a symbol. No grand statue. No golden monument. Just a simple plaque. He chose others. Sarah visited Earth years later. She stood beneath open skies, feeling rain for the first time. She placed her hand over Evan's name and closed her eyes. Your choice didn't end with you, she whispered. It became all of us. Above her, human children laughed, free, safe, unaware of the sacrifice that helped change the stars.